The final weekend of racing in the Fanatec GT2 European Series, powered by Pirelli, here at a rather damp Barcelona circuit. We've had heavy rain that really affected the earlier GT3 race. It is a wet track and 2 formation laps required for the drivers in what has, of course, a large number of AM drivers within it. 16 cars we have, championships to be decided this weekend in both Pro-Am and in the AM categories. And the field starting to make its way onto the circuit. David Anderson trackside. The road, as I say, is wet, although it is infinitely better than it was about 40 minutes ago when the heavens opened. We had a lot of rain and quite a bit of standing water. Even behind the safety car, there was a lot of spray. But the track surface is improving all the time. It's been a real weather-affected day, both in terms of GT3 and the McLaren Trophy that we had earlier on. It started off with drivers having to cope with a circuit that was a little bit damp, but then it became really properly wet, and we'll see what the weather gods have in store over the next 50 minutes, which is the duration of this penultimate race of the season. You're looking there at the Arthur Kvist and Dominic Olbert KTM. The fans that have taken shelter, ready for action. The championships on the line are in Pro-Am. Reinhard Koffler and Martin Koch ahead of Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini, who really need a win in this race, whereas it's much closer. Just 10 points coming into the weekend in AM between Jean-Luc Bobelic and Gilles Vannelet. That is Vannelet's car. And Philippe Pret, 10 points behind him. So the drivers now making their way, as I say, to the grid, and it will be 2 formation laps. So they'll have the second one within the 50 minutes duration. The Pro-Am leaders, Martin Koch will go first in the car he shares with Reinhard Koffler. They have been in the top 3 in every race so far this season. So looking forward for another good race. But there are 52 points on offer. So Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini still have a chance to take the championship. They've had 4 wins as well. And they need to be in the top 2 in this opening race in order to keep their championship hopes alive going into tomorrow. Stefan Ortelli there, who is based these days in Monaco and is friendly with the Pret family, both Philippe and his son Louis, who was in the earlier GT3 race. So Stefan Ortelli on the grid as driver coach, as helper, and as strapper inner. But the radio earpieces need to be given first to the man behind the wheel, to Philippe Pret, who goes solo, so he gets a lot of mileage. You don't have to have a co-driver, but many elect to share driving duties. And in many cases, if you're an AM, you'd like a very quick pro to give you an even better chance of success. But Philippe Pret electing to drive on his own. So there in number 89, the KTM Crossbow. That is going to be started by Lennart Marionek, new to the championship, but a quick driver, as we've seen before in German GT categories. And he will hand that car over to Matto Hommler, former front runner in touring car racing, world touring cars particularly. So there the grid formed, and very shortly the cars will set off on their formation lap. The race due to get underway in about 7 minutes' time. So still quite a lot of the countdown to complete. Pole position having gone to the Mercedes of Gilles Vannelet after the qualifying session this morning. And then lining up on the outside of the front row, Philippe Pret with the Maserati. You can see drivers electing for, I think, largely wet tyres. It was a very, very wet road a little while ago, and although it has dried, given that they're AMs, I think they'll be on the cautious side. Leonardo Guarini fighting for a championship. He will start aboard number 1. There, Jörg Wiebahn, who will go first in the Mercedes AMG that he shares this weekend with Andy Cantu, the American driver, who we've seen go quickly in GT4, and Andy Cantu is another fast driver, so one to watch. Right then, so the field ready to go and rattling through, ready to get the formation lap underway. So the Pro-Am pole, 4th on the grid, Lennart Marionek doing the time. It's an AM on pole, Gilles Vannelet and Jean-Luc Beaubelic, who are very, very experienced. Gilles Vannelet starts, and he will give way to Jean-Luc Beaubelic at the pit window. The pit window for the GT2 European Series comes between 20 and 30 minutes. It's 116 seconds for everybody. But then, if you're in the top 3 in a previous race, then you carry the so-called compensation time. So the championship leaders, Koch and Koffler, they have 10 seconds to serve as the green flag lap gets underway. And their championship rivals have 7 seconds to serve, Gorini and Tamburini. In AM, there are 10 seconds for the pole car of Vannelet and Beaubelic. 53, Christophe Bourret and Pascal Gibbon have 7 to serve. And number 16, Klaus Angerhofer and Seti Samini with the KTM, they've got 5 seconds extra to serve in the pit stops. So the cars set off then now behind the pace car as it is, ready for 2 formation laps. The expectation being that the clock will start at the end of the first. So this is the grid, Gilles Vannelet on pole position and Philippe Pret lining up with him. Mercedes and Maserati then on the front row. It's KTM's locking out row 2, Dominic Olbert and Lennart Marianek ahead of Leonardo Guarini's Maserati and another of the Mercedes, Jörg Wiebahn, lining up alongside. Then Martin Koch, one to watch, the championship leader alongside Gianluca Giorgi with the LP Racing Audi. Mercedes next, Mauro Ricci. Maserati for Roberto Pampanini, who had a spin in qualifying. Klaus Angerhofer with the KTM has Christophe Bourret's Mercedes AMG alongside. Then it's Hubert Trunkenpolz and Wim de Pundert with Alexandre Leroy and Thomas Anderson at the back of the grid, both with penalties after incidents last time out at Monza. They both get grid drops. So the cars making their way up towards the climb now to turn 9. This 4.6 kilometre long circuit. And the end of this lap, we'll have a further look at the circuit because it's the first real opportunity they've had to experience the circuit all weekend in anything other than dry conditions. Yesterday was absolutely gorgeous. It was warm, it was sunny, it was bright. This morning at least was dry, if overcast, but then this rain has arrived and at completely the wrong time of the day, hooned it down, and it really did spoil the track surface for the GT3 race and gave everybody a few nightmares. So the cars turning their way in front of the big grandstand, busy grandstand 2, into turn 10. There's Alexandre Leroy then, who's got work to do up from the back of the grid, but he's another experienced driver, is Alexandre, so one to watch when we go racing. There is Philippe Pret's Maserati number 2, the sister car from LP Racing, Luca Piri's team number 1, and Lego, Leonardo Guarini at the wheel of it. Wipers on as the cars come then now down through turn 13. So certainly the track surface is looking better, and the clock has indeed started then as they come over the line. So all of this now counting within the hour. And at the end of this lap, they will put themselves in that side-by-side formation ready for the start proper, and then we will be in business. But it just means that this stint, in terms of the number of racing laps you can do, is effectively shortened by 1. But the whole reason for it is so that the drivers have a little bit more experience of what the road is like in the wet. They have a little bit more warmth in the tyres, and it's all a bit safer when we do go racing. So the drivers coming out of turn 3, this fairly steep climb that brings you all the way up to the short straight to the long right of turn 4. The road drops down the hill again, but what goes down normally comes up, and that next climb is out of turn 7 up towards turn 9, and then there's another little rise coming out of turn 10 up towards 11 with a nice run down the hill from turn 13 to the line. So the spray will be more of an issue, I suspect, when we go racing. The Lamborghini leading car will peel in at the end of this lap. then we will be in business. Circuit does dry quickly. Coming out of turn 6, that little straight towards the next section of the circuit, but the road looking a lot drier than it was 10-20 minutes or so ago. Even though it's not the warmest of days, the road is getting dry fairly impressively. So towards the end of the stint, I'm imagining they'll all start on wets, but towards the end of the first 20-minute period, may well be that those that have looked after their tyres the better find themselves in a far better place if you don't start to preserve them. Overheating tyres is going to be the result. Down they come towards turn 10. Riding on board the Pampanini Maserati. Going through that turn 10 left-hander. Now they get themselves side by side, ready for the rolling start. There is the gold Maserati of the Dynamic Motorsport team that made its name really running Minis initially and then Porsches, race winning in GT World Challenge Europe, but now with the Maserati, and so the cars come down through turn 13, ready to drop downhill. And when we go racing, it's going to be with about 46 minutes on the clock. So they come into the final corner, the leading car bunches them all up, it then bails, and we are ready to go. The lights will change, and now we are officially underway. Race 1 of the weekend in Fanatec GT2 European Series, powered by Pirelli, is go. And they charge down towards the right-hander at turn 1 with Philippe Pret going backwards in the traffic, isn't he? Not so good off the blocks. And that means that Vanelay will lead up into second place. Jörg Wiebahn, really good start in the Mercedes. Lennart Marionek third. And he has got Dominic Olbert's KTM on the inside line there, going up towards turn 3, the red and white car. So Olbert goes by and puts himself up in a third place. One or two drivers being understandably cautious with a wet track surface. Bit of spray hanging in the air now, but Gilles Vanelay using many years of experience to good effect. But look at the way that Jörg Wiebahn is going after him, absolutely charging, although Jörg goes a bit deep there into turn 4. And Dominic Olbert tries to get up the inside. Mercedes AMG's overlapping. And from 6th on the grid, Jörg Wiebahn is going to be the leader before much longer looking at this, because that has been a really impressive first lap. He's managed to find the traction. And as the drone chases the Mauro Ricci Mercedes off the road, there goes Roberto Pampanini's Maserati by the look of it. And more drama around the lap because Wiebahn has gone backwards rather than forwards. He's fallen back into 4th place. Dominic Olbert tries to go around the outside for the lead and gets the lead in the KTM. Nice move. That was going up towards turn 9. So the white and red KTM leading the way. And Jörg Wiebahn, having been pushing for the race lead, I fear, probably ran out of real estate, and he's had to slot back into the pack. Down they drop, heading into the left-hander at turn 10. Lennart Marionek on the inside line in the black and white KTM. He's got Mercedes fore and aft. Ahead of him is Vanelay, behind him is Wiebahn. And up now into turn 11 they come, making the climb up the hill here. Through the right and back on the power, the tail wagging KTM up front. So it is going to be Dominic Olbert in the lead, as to the outside line is pushed Marionek, and that allows Jörg Wiebahn through into 3rd place. So he's rebuilding the lap after he lost ground midway around it. But at the end of the lap, it is going to be Dominic Olbert in the KTM who leads the way. Small gap back to in 2nd place, Gilles Vanelay. Then 3rd, it is the Jörg Wiebahn Mercedes, and 4th, Lennart Marionek. 5th is Philippe Pret. So from the outside of the front row, he's down to 5th, and down to 6th is the sister car of Leonardo Guarini. One would suggest, therefore, that the Maseratis are not that happy in these damp, wet, slippery conditions. There is Guarini. Behind him, you've got the Audi of Gianluca Giorgi, then Roberto Pampanini. Ricci comes next, and there is Alexandre Leroy. Now, 812 has also fallen a long way back in the traffic, it seems. That is Martin Koch. That car 7th on the grid, 11th now. So Martin Koch not enjoying these conditions either. They've not done that much wet running this year. So for some, it's coming as a bit of a shock to the system. On board with Roberto Pampanini, and just up the road ahead is Gianluca Giorgi with the Audi R8. Pampanini, an experienced driver, trying to work out which way he can go to make that move as Jörg Wiebahn attacks Gilles Vannelet, forces him out a little bit wide, but can't quite get the car to get the traction to bite, and therefore he's got to stay behind Vannelet as Dominic Olbert leads the way. He's had a tough season with that KTM, but right now that car looking really nicely suited to these conditions. Out of turn 9 they come, and then this fast straight into the heavy braking zone of turn 10. The Barcelona circuit with this kind of paperclip infield where there's a lot crammed into it, the sort of circuit doubling back on itself. Deep into the corner at 10 goes Vannelet, goes wide, struggles for traction, and that's going to give Jörg Wiebahn second place. He goes through and gets the job done, so he can cover it off at the apex of the next corner. In turn, Vannelet is under attack now from Lennart Marionek, who gets up the inside, but can't quite wriggle through. They turn their way now downhill, but while they've been squabbling like this, the leader has got away. So up front, starting to pull clear of the rest, is the Dominic Olbert KTM. He goes through, or does he go through? Now, the timing system has lost him. So what has happened to Dominic Olbert? He's off the road somewhere. The Mercedes now take over the race lead. They are side by side down to turn 1. It is Wiebahn who goes through into the lead of the race. Vannelet in second spot, and third, Lennart Marionek. But Dominic Olbert there has had a moment, and it was coming out of turn 10. He was hidden behind the barriers, but he's got himself going again. So Dominic Olbert has thrown away the race lead, having been looking pretty impressive early on, and that Mercedes battle now finds itself for overall honours. So it is Wiebahn, Vannelet, and then Marionek, 1, 2 and 3, and Jörg Wiebahn up front, looking as though a maiden win might possibly be theirs for the taking here. As far as the championship is concerned, Gorini is running third in class, but Martin Koch is really struggling at the moment in 8-12, and it looks as though the Maserati is certainly going to outscore the KTM as long as it stays in the top 2 within its class. So Gorini running third, needs to get a wriggle on, but equally he's got Carlo Tamburini to do the second stint, and we know how quick he is, as now Gilles Vannelet comes under attack and loses second place. Through on the inside line goes Lennart Marionek. Good move that, nicely done. So Wiebahn in Pro-Am this weekend with the silver graded Andy Cantu, and he leads the category from Lennart Marionek there in second spot. So as the cars now accelerate their way up towards turn 11, Mercedes leads the way, and with about 10 minutes before the pit window opens, we'll see, I suspect in a number of cases, these drivers coming in early and letting their co-driver, their quicker co-driver in some cases at least, do the lion's share of the work. Number 2 though is Philippe Pretz, second in his class behind 87 Mercedes of Gilles Vannelet. The Maserati battle you're looking at here is between Leonardo Gorini, who is dropping away, and Alexandre Leroy, who is making very good progress. There are the leaders, where Wiebahn, Marionek, Vannelet remains the order, and Alexandre Leroy is absolutely charging from the back of the grid up into 7th place now, on the tail of Leonardo Gorini. That drama for Dominic Olbert when he was leading has put him to flat last and a rather distant last. So a spin and a stall, he finally got it going, but Dominic Olbert will be very, very frustrated to say the least in that car that he shares with Arthur Kvist. There, Lennart Marionek leading in Pro-Am. Sorry, second in Pro-Am, I should say, behind Jörg Wiebahn. And there, staying with them, is Gilles Vannelet. Even if as yet he's not been able to quite combat the pace of the KTM, he's not falling off the back of that queue. And these three have really got away as off the road goes the Audi there. So Gianluca Giorgi is off the road down at turn 3, recovers, rejoins, but more time lost. Self-preservation, pretty important in this race right now, and 1 or 2 drivers discovering where the grip levels aren't. You think you've got it right, you push a little bit harder, and the weather conditions are there to catch you out. So as the leader snakes down towards turn 10. Jörg Wiebahn it is up front. Lennart Marianek in second place, and third, right with them, Gilles Vannelet. But is Wiebahn now starting just to get away a little bit? That gap looks like it's extended slightly on this lap. Through they turn. And part of that extension, I think, is coming from the fact that Lennart Marianek is a bit busy trying to keep at bay the Gilles Vannelet Mercedes. Best lap of the race so far has gone to Lennart Marianek last time through. Tyres warmer, fuel load down a little bit. See if anybody else can improve upon that by the end of the race, as now the overcast skies are starting to break. The blue sky shines through, and the circuit looking completely different from what it did about 45 minutes ago in the height of the deluge in the GT3 race. Out of turn 1 then goes this Wiebahn, Marianek, Vannelet battle, and the fastest lap of the race now done by Roberto Pampanini, as Vannelet is back on his toes to try to get himself up and past the Lennart Marianek KTM for second place, all of which is enabling Wiebahn to get away up front in the lead. Jörg Wiebahn having come into GT2 this year and has been impressive as expected. Former GT4 champion, very experienced a racer. The KTMs are at play as there Hubert Trunkenpolz and Dominic Olbert go toe-to-toe. Olbert round the outside and tries to make progress. So Wiebahn leading at the moment by 0.6 of a second over Lennart Marianek. Gilles Vannelet third, Philippe Pret fourth, Roberto Pampanini fifth, and Alexandre Leroy up into sixth overall. Doesn't really affect Gorini for points, but interesting that Leroy's Maserati looks very, very impressive and has carved its way through now from the back of the grid, the TF Racing car, really storming through. Right, there is number 80 KTM. That's in the hands of Thomas Anderson, having got himself up past Klaus Angerhofer. He's now in 8th, and his next target is going to be Leonardo Gorini. And as the road is drying all the time, and as the sun is breaking through and the temperature is going up, preserving these tyres for another 6.5 minutes into the pit window is going to be important, and we'll see which teams, if any, elect to do a tyre change, or whether they are going to put the second driver out on that same compound and hope they can look after them to the very end. Mercedes battle there is Mauro Ricci ahead of Christophe Bure. Ricci in the blue car, Bure in the grey-silver livery. And Christophe Bure starting to inch a little bit closer now, up onto the back of Mauro Ricci. They've both got ahead of Gianluca Giorgi after his travails through the gravel, as there Lennart Marianek comes up through turn 2. But the race leader, Jörg Wiebahn, looking good up front, starting to build that advantage. And because Marianek is having to defend, that's also delaying Gilles Vannelet. So as far as the leader is concerned, that margin now is starting to extend. Not by much, but just enough. 0.9 of a second it was last time over the line. Marianek versus Vannelet, second and third. And as soon as you put the power down, if there's not quite enough grip, you see what happens. The back of the KTM starts to slide out of line. Under braking, Gilles Vannelet closes once again, but still Lennart Marianek has the advantage. The pit straight looks almost dry now. It's the back part of the circuit, I think, where the water remains and a little bit of spray is still evident. But look, on this lap, Gilles Vannelet much more rapid, and that out wide has gone. Yet another KTM. Is that the Klaus Angerhofer car, number 16? Yes, it is. So Angerhofer makes a mistake coming out of turn 3. And in the process, loses a place back to the traffic. So Angerhofer falls down the order a little bit. There are the Mercedes still squabbling. Mauro Ricci ahead of Christophe Bure. And so with reports of Gianluca Giorgi having been off, as we saw, then a spin for Angerhofer, the order continues to shuffle and the road continues to dry and continues to become a faster racetrack. More and more personal best laps and personal best sectors being posted as the clock ticks on down. 50 minutes this race, and we're about 4 minutes away from the pit window opening. Down towards turn 1 goes this battle between Mercedes and KTM, and it is now Mercedes ahead. So Vannelet past Marionette, goes by. And now that he's cleared the KTM, finally, let's see, as the road dries, what he can do about the leader. The gap, 2.3 seconds when they came across the line. It was then, in the context of first to third, now first to second. But Vanderlei, I think, is being able to shake off Marionette. The KTM is a quick car, but it likes twisty circuits. And maybe in the dry, it's going to be more about the grunt of the Mercedes AMGs around here. We'll find out as they come now down through turn 5. Looking down from the drone with the Mercedes AMG getting away there from that KTM tucked up behind. Jörg Wiebahn, race leader, and he's about 3 minutes away from the pit window opening. Now, although Andy Cantu is quick, he's not driven the car before, so are we expecting that car to be in early, or are we anticipating that they will stay out for a little bit longer and use as much of Jörg Wiebahn's experience of GT2 Mercedes AMGs as is possible? Time will tell as the cars now come out of the left-hander of turn 10 up the hill. Clock ticks on down, and Wiebahn clearing the lead for the moment. That Dorint Hotel sponsored car leads the way, and Jörg Wiebahn lapping at the moment at just over 2 minutes, so he's not going to be far off when he comes to the line, having a lap between him and the pit window opening. So he comes up now towards the timing line, and as he breaks the beam now, he's about 4 seconds over a 2-minute lap, so it's going to be probably not open for him by the end of the lap, but it might be open for Vanderlei or Marionette behind. So the advantage here on the pit window opening might just fall to second and third and those behind rather than to the race leader if they were thinking of pitting at the end of this lap early in the window. So Jörg Wiebahn goes by. Gilles Vanderlei now has done the fastest lap of the race, so he's hunting him down. He's taken about 6/10 out of that advantage last time through. Gilles Vanderlei hustles on, therefore. So the race leaders currently on lap 9, and they're sliding his way out of turn 4. Comes Gilles Vanderlei, and with a clear road ahead of him and a drying road as well, so he can apply a little bit more power and have a little bit more confidence to push. So that gap is coming down to the race leader. 1.7 seconds it is now. It was 2.3, so Vanderlei going the right way about it as the field accelerates again up towards the approach to turn 9 now. Gilles Vanderlei, who has been involved in myriad championships for many, many years. He's been a mainstay of GT races, largely in recent times, but has raced in GT4 as well as GT3, as well as in the National French Championship, not just European Series. He was one of the prime movers in the early days of the FIA European GT3 Championship. And there, Roberto Pampanini, another experienced campaigner, largely in Ferraris, but now switching to a different Italian brand, the Maserati. He's getting himself onto the back of Philippe Pret. Now, they're in different classes, same type of car, but Pret runs in AM, Pampanini in Pro-Am, and they're almost together as they make the run now out of turn 14. Now, the pit window is open, but no takers yet. Through goes Alexandre Leroy over the timing line, and there is number 1, Leonardo Guarini, who is leaving Carlo Tamburini with quite a lot of work to do. But just as he is struggling, so is his championship rival Martin Koch. Neither of those Pro-Am title fighters are having a very happy time of it in this race. Now, I wonder whether Koch might have to give up the unequal struggle sooner and give way to Koffler. For the race lead, though, they're nose to tail. Jörg Wiebahn now has been caught hand over the proverbial by Gilles Vanderlei, and as the Mercedes slide their way out of turn 3, it is most definitely game on now for the race lead. Crawling all over the back of Wiebahn is Vanderlei, and surely it can't be long before he makes that move and makes the strike ready to go by. To the inside line goes Gilles Vanderlei, heading into turn 7, but it's not really a good place to overtake, so he thinks better of it, but he's certainly serving intent here. He's getting Wiebahn rattled, he's showing him that he's quicker, and commits to the inside line going up towards turn 9, and again thinks, no, maybe not there, wait for a straight line. So the end of this next back straight down towards turn 10 is perhaps where Gilles Vannelet elects to try. Incidentally, Thomas Anderson has pitted, so has Mauro Ricci and Gianluca Giorgi. Vannelet thinks about the inside, but he's not close enough there. Can't do it. Slots back in. So the fast lap of the race has been set by Gilles Vannelet. And as they come up now from turn 12, the Mercedes are together, but is it going to be a battle that trades on the track or in the pits? Staying out, I think, is the leader, and staying out is second. So Wiebahn continues, Vannelet continues. Number 81 serving the regulation pit stop. So that is Wim de Punde to give way to the 5-time DTM champion Ben Schneider. And there are now some of the leading cars coming into the pit lane, including Leonardo Guarini then. So Guarini in and Roberto Pampanini in as well. Also, Martin Koch is completing his pit stop to give way to Reinhard Koffler. So that, a significant stop, puts Koffler in a little bit sooner than it does Tamburini. Mauro Calamia gets into the gold Maserati there from the Dynamique stable. And Reinhard Koffler has just left the pit lane in number 812 KTM. That is Leonardo Guarini getting out with 116 seconds. They are not frantic pit stops. Take out the different cushion for different drivers, and Carlo Tamburini awaits his chance to get on board. There is Gilles Vannelet. Now that he's ahead, he has made the move stick, and he's getting away from Jörg Wiebahn. So new race leader is Gilles Vannelet, so he's going to lead them to the pit stops. We approach half distance then in this penultimate race of the season. A big flash of the lights from Vannelet for any traffic up the road, just to say, I'm coming. Not quite sure who that was aimed at, because there's no back marker in sight. Leonard Marianek still there in third place, and Jörg Wiebahn hanging on to his class lead. Now, here is how the lead changed. It was Vannelet down the inside going into turn 1, and Jörg Wiebahn respectfully gives him the room, doesn't force the issue, knowing there's a lot of the race left, and that Andy Cantu may well turn out to be quicker than Jean-Luc Bobelic, so their chances are not done yet, but they are staying out, so it's understandable in the Vannelet case, because he's quicker than Jean-Luc Bobelic, but Jörg Wiebahn staying out, as I say, because he knows more about the car than does Andy Cantu, who is new to GT2 racing. Down the pit road comes 89, Lennart Marionek now to give way to Matto Homola. Turn everything off, and that distinctive up and forward bodywork, which doubles up as the doors. Then the driver can wriggle through the cage, mind your head. Out gets Lennart Marionek. In wheel jump Matto Homola, who had a spin in qualifying, in fact, dropped the car in the gravel in the second session. So as the number 17 KTM cycles through its pit stop, Hubert Trunkenpolt gives way to Laura Kreimer. And behind is the Matto Homola car. So Laura Kreimer gets going. And there, Matto Homola being strapped in. Another KTM coming into the pits, incidentally, is 16 for Klaus Angerhofer to give to Seti Samini now. So the race leader, still Gilles Vannelet on lap 12. And Jörg Wiebahn, look, is staying with him. He may have lost the lead, but he's not lost that much time. So this is still going to be game on in the second stint. And Cantu, who's not raced the car before, versus Bobelic, is going to be really interesting. Here they come, tiptoeing their way through turn 12. And you can see now as the road dries, but a wet tyre starts to struggle, the car's moving all over the road, and it's not an easy drive now for any of them. Vannelet wagging the tail as he comes through, and Wiebahn's going to go to the pits this time. So he blinks first, if you like, but he's decided it's now time for Andy Cantu to get on board. I wonder as well whether they're going to buck the trend and do a tyre change, or whether there's enough dampness out there to keep the rubber on for the end. The team ready No suggestion of a tyre change as the Mercedes goes to its pit box and stops now. Door opens. Jörg Wiebahn will prize himself out of the car, and Andy Cantu nods in approval, says well done. Will be a quick word between the two, and the door is closed. They're going to put some fuel in the car, so they've run it light. You can't have anybody in the car, engine off, while the fuel goes in. So refueling done, and then Andy Cantu will be allowed to jump on board. And with 116 seconds, as we've seen, you don't need to be doing this in an urgent panic. You can relax, take your time about it, and better you're slightly over the pit stop regulation time than under it. Andy Cantu gets on board. That car being run by the NM Racing team, based near the Barcelona circuit, so a home race for the Spanish squad, as Gilles Vanelay in the meantime accelerates his way now once more towards the end of a lap. Gilles Vanelay ready to give that car to Jean-Luc Beaubelique. He has got time for one more lap within the window, but probably no more than that, because it's a long old lap of nearly 5 kilometres, just over 4.6. So Vanelay leads the way in that Minerva Oil-backed Mercedes AMG GT2. You can see that the road is still wet enough then for the wet tyres to work. Bit of spray kicked from the side of the car. Water drips from the back as he comes out of turn 12 now. Andy Cantu on his way. So he will be up to speed a little bit sooner than Vanelay's co-driver when Jean-Luc Beaubelique gets in. Here is Vanelay coming in to give way to Beaubelique now. As he has to get himself up to speed, Andy Cantu will be one lap further forward in his stint and just that little bit more confident maybe. Vanelay in then, race leader, comes to the pit lane, gets to the speed limit line, slows the car down and now makes his way to the team. So the Mercedes in, also in Philippe Pret. And there is Alexandre Leroy finishing off his pit stop as well. Number 2 stops on its marks. So the driver change where applicable, up and down the pit lane. And here, Andy Cantu then getting used to a different type of race machine. He's driven for the NM Racing team in GT4, but now into GT2. And the American, like quite a few actually, coming to Europe to ply their sports car trade. And he is ready to take on this Mercedes in the hands of Jean-Luc Beaubelique. So JLB is aboard. He's another driver that's been around the block many, many times. He wouldn't argue that he's as fast as Vanelay, but Jean-Luc Beaubelique is a safe pair of hands, and he's a great enthusiast. We've seen him on GT3 grids of late, GT4 grids, and he came to GT2 last year and enjoyed himself. So Jean-Luc Beaubelique, a mainstay of the SRO paddock. Andy Cantu in the meantime still pushing on, as there Jean-Luc Beaubelique gets ready to go. So he ought to come out in the fight, but that car has to serve 10 seconds in the pits, whereas the 888 Mercedes there did not have to serve any extra time, and that should be enough to put Andy Cantu into the lead of the race as he comes up towards the timing line and goes through and does indeed take over the lead. And it's going to cost Beaubelique as well the lead of the AM class, because past him, look, has gone Philippe Pret. There's a yellow flag out in the middle sector as well. Looking around out of the window to try and see who and where, and that's the answer. It is number 61 coming out of turn 7, and that had done the driver change to Benjamin Ricci. Now, is that mechanical or has it had a spin and stalled? Either way, it is on the racetrack. As far as we know, it's mechanical. The car has just stopped, and if it can't restart from there, we're going to have the race neutralised to get it out of the way. The race director will give the driver 30 seconds or so to see if it can be a kind of control-alt-delete restart process, but if not, then it's going to have to be shifted. He's rolling it backwards, but it's still in a rather exposed place, so we'll keep an eye on that and see whether or not the race needs to be neutralised. There is Beaubelique then, who has lost out to the Maserati now of Mauro Calamia, who's gone through. Mauro Calamia up ahead of him. And there you can see 61 Mercedes by the side of the road, wiper on for Pret. Not suggesting the rain is coming again, he may well have just clipped that, but as you look at the race leader, Andy Cantu, he's coming down towards turn 10, and behind is Matto Homola. Third is Pret, fourth there is Mauro Calamia, and behind him in fifth spot now Jean-Luc Bobelic. So a big shuffle of the order on the pit stops, those compensation times introduced so you don't get the same winner every race, to try and just give a bit more variety to the racing, and it works well in different championships. Maserati side by side, to the outside line goes Calamia, and he can't quite get through there, so Philippe Pret hangs on to him. Pret in AM, Calamia in the Pro-Am battle, and Jean-Luc Bobelic behind is an AM. Up towards the timing line they come. So the new race leader, Andy Cantu, is through, and the safety car is deployed. Safety car is called, so it must be to get that number 61 Mercedes out of harm's way, and we go safety car then. So the order won't change while the safety car is on track. There it is. So we've got to safety car conditions, and now the safety car scramble. The lights are on, so it's ready to pick up the leader next time Andy Cantu comes through. And the safety car, which has had quite a busy day really, what with doing the bulk of the GT3 race, is now ready to receive the race leader. So 17 minutes on the clock. Shouldn't take long to get that car out of the way, but to get marshals to it, you need everybody else under control and maximising the amount of clear track space for the marshals to work. So you want one brief line of cars, not the constant stream. And the safety car will find the race leader. And as the drone chases the Maserati, that puts it fifth behind Mauro Calamia. There is 67 Maserati. And now the recovery vehicle heading onto the circuit to attend to a stranded and clearly troubled Mercedes out of the Acodis ASP stable that we saw for so many seasons, winning in GT3. Jerome Policon's team still represented within the paddock, still keeping that link with the brand, albeit in this GT2 format now rather than GT3. So the field turning its way again down to turn 10. There is the leader, and as you can see, Matto Homola now is right up behind him. So the gap much reduced. The cars wriggling their way up into turn 12 as the clock continues to tick on down in this opening GT2 European Series race of the weekend. Philippe Pret in third, Mauro Calamia in fourth. So it's all bunched up. It's going to be an interesting restart, this, when we get going. Drivers coming up to the completion of the lap. They will come through with 15 minutes on the clock now. So the safety car has got hold of the race leader. 14 minutes then still to run. And as I say, it shouldn't take that long to get that Mercedes out of the way. Hopefully, it just needs a couple of intervention workers and a bit of rope, hoik it out of the way, and then we're good. So it's off the road. That's the good news. And Mauro Calamia getting ready for the resumption of the race. Carlo Tamburini, number one, would have benefited slightly out of all of this because he now is on the back of Simon Birch. So on the restart, you can expect a bit more shuffling of the order, I suspect. So the drivers keeping the tyre pressures up, keeping the tyre temperatures up as best they can, ready for the race to get back underway. And that can't be that long off now as the Ricci Mercedes is pushed through that little gap. So when the lights go out, we'll know the safety car is due in. And if it's not this lap, then it's going to be with about 11 minutes of racing, I suspect. It will be this time. Safety car in at the end of this lap. So through they turn, and the safety car ready to peel in. That will get things back underway. So Andy Cantu looking for a race win. Lights go green once more, green flags fly, and as they come across the line, it is Andy Cantu in the lead of the race. Matto Homola behind him, and a change imminent for third place. Look, as Mauro Calamea goes to the inside line and tries to outbrake Philippe Pret going in towards turn one. Pret in the lead of Am, but not for much longer. Jean-Luc Boblic is on the inside line as well. Those two fighting for the championship. Pret needs to outscore Boblic to take his hopes to tomorrow, but Boblic gets ahead of him. Jean-Luc Boblic goes through. Mercedes ahead of Maserati now. So Jean-Luc Boblic goes ahead of Philippe Pret at exactly the same time that Philippe Pret's pit stop comes up under investigation. Boblic deep into turn 4. Pret, though, has got other problems, potentially, if there is a problem within the pits. Number 24, Alexandre Leroy, still pushing on as well. And that's Calamea having a look on the inside for second place now, Matto Homola. Andy Cantu trying to get away up front. So for second place, Calamea goes through, Cantu just up the road ahead of him, and that Maserati might yet be on for a victory here. It's looking good. They're all bunched up behind, so Maserati for second, KTM for third, Mauro Calamea going through into second place, fourth Boblic, fifth in the background is Pret, sixth behind him is Simon Birch, then Carlo Tamburini, and Tamburini really needs to be ahead of the Reinhard Koff at KTM, and he is, in order to keep his hopes alive, but neither are scoring very well. And the 812 Koch and Koffler KTM is having a horrible race, we've barely seen it, and it's down in 11th place overall. For the race lead, nose to tail, Andy Cantu over the line, and right there with him is Mauro Calamea, and he's going to challenge Izzy down towards turn 1. Cantu goes for the wet part of the racetrack to look after the tyres. Down into the braking zone, down through the gears at the end of that long, long pit straight. Go right, go left. Right again at turn 3, slight climb here. Mauro Calamea sees a gap, gets the traction and goes all the way around the outside. Really nice move, that. So Mauro Calamea, new race leader. He's up front. And a 12-second time penalty added at the end of the race for Philippe Pret for being too short on the pit stop. So Philippe Pret contravened the regulation for his pit stop time and cops a penalty as a result. So big, big disappointment for him. There is number 2, Philippe Pret, and that's really bad news as far as his championship hopes are concerned, especially given that the field have all bunched up anyway, so any thought of a gap to up the class opposition sort of disappears. Plus, he's behind Jean-Luc Boblic anyway, so Philippe Pret may well now be out of contention as far as the AM Championship is concerned, ready for tomorrow. Cantu versus Calamea, they're still together, and round the outside again for the lead goes Calamea, and this time he has got it and he's made it stick. So Mauro Calamea goes through, and now the race leader tries to build that gap. Maserati leads, 8.5 minutes on the clock. Mauro Calamia comes through. Now trying to build an advantage over in second place, Andy Cantu's Mercedes AMG, and then next up, Matto Homola in the KTM. And Homola not being able to stay with them now as the road starts to dry a little bit. If anything, he's under attack from Jean-Luc Beaubelic, and then Philippe Pret. Next up, Simon Birch, Alexandre Leroy, and going a bit deep into turn one is the Audi of the LP Racing team. That has now got Alfio Andrea Spina at the wheel of it. Spina just keeping Carlo Tamburini at bay. Number one, Maserati, is another car that's not really come alive. A little bit wide at turn four there goes Simon Birch. But Alexandre Leroy under attack now. He's got Carlo Tamburini right up behind him. Tamburini to the outside line. This is down towards turn five. Can't do it there. Or can he? He might just get a bit more drive off the corner on the outside. Sometimes that's where the grip is to be found, but no, not this time it isn't. Behind them in 88, the Audi catching up all the while of Alfio Spina. So 88 remains behind, and Spina chasing after Leroy, who's making progress because he's got himself back past Tamburini now. Carlo Tamburini is having another tough race. There's 812 of Reinhard Koffler. He's having a tough race as well. Number one, Maserati yo-yoing, and if 812 gets ahead, then that's pretty much it, I think, as far as the championship is concerned. If the KTM can outscore number one Maserati, it's pretty much game over going into tomorrow's race. So downhill they come, and Reinhard Koffler edging closer. This will be the first time that car's not finished in the top three. And the race now has 6 minutes and change still to run as the cars go over the timing line with Mauro Calamia, who's really come out of nowhere in a sense. Yes, that car was looking good early on, but it didn't qualify brilliantly. Don't forget, this is up from 10th on the grid, and now not only leading, but getting away, building the gap all the time. How much further down the order is Carlo Tamburini going to fall? He's got himself back ahead of Alexandre Leroy. These two Maseratis trading places, but as they trade them, and out wide goes Tamburini. Have a look who's behind. It's Reinhard Koffler, who is trying to get up with them, but Tamburini on this lap, getting on with the programme, pushing on and putting a car between himself and his championship rival. Downhill they drop once more. So 812 Reinhard Koffler in a car that just seems to be struggling for pace in a way that the Marionette and Homola KTM is assuredly not doing. That car from the RTR Project stable. And there, Tamburini also now trying to muscle his way past Simon Birch. Couldn't do it there, up to turn 9, but perhaps aware of how much closer Koffler is getting, so he's trying to push on. Philippe Pret there going through is running 4th on the road, but 12 seconds is going to drop him to about 12th place. So it's a really costly time penalty. .812 still pressing on, Reinhard Koffler. There you can see number one, the car that he's fighting against in the championship, Carlo Tamburini at the wheel of it. Alexandre Leroy next in the queue, and Koffler trying to get himself up ahead of number 24, Maserati, so he can have a pop at the championship opponent, number one. The leaders go through with 4 minutes on the clock now. So 3 more laps, potentially. They're lapping at just under 2 minutes. Down towards turn 1, Calamia now very nearly 7 seconds to the good. He's building that lead very nicely indeed. So Mauro Calamia up front, Andy Cantu second here, but for how much longer? Because not that far adrift is Matto Homola. this is how we would be in the championship. So Reinhard Koffler, Martin Koch, I think will have done enough to take that away from Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini. So champions elect, let's call them, to be on the safe side. Koffler and Koch, 40 points ahead, but with the championship, with one more race tomorrow, having 25 for a win, it looks as though Koch and Koffler have done it. The Maserati team needed to be in the top 2 in their class to keep their hopes alive, and right now they're 5th. So I reckon it's going to be job done for the KTM drivers, even though perversely it's the worst race they've had all season. It might well be the one that gives them the championship success, but it's been a tough day at the office for Reinhard Koffler. There, Carlo Tamburini still pushing, goes to the outside line to try to get past Simon Birch, but can't quite do it. Or can he? Yes, he can. Gets the outside line and gets the run up the hill, goes to the outside line, tiptoes round on the outside, and comes off the corner again, but gets roughed up wide over the curb. That's going to bring Leroy at the inside, and then also Alfio Spina gets himself up past Reinhard Koffler, whose car just has no pace in it. It matters less maybe for Koffler because he's on target to win the championship anyway, because number 1 isn't doing well enough. But under normal circumstances, this would be a major blow because that car is just nowhere near the pace it normally has. There, going into turn 1 on the outside line is Tamburini. Goes round the outside of Simon Birch. That should put Carlo Tamburini now up into the top 6. Still drivers having to be oh so careful before they really nail the throttle. I thought for a moment there was a car off the road up ahead, but this is the Ben Schneider Mercedes. Ben Schneider at the wheel in 11th place, seeing what's going on ahead of him, but that's another car that just doesn't give you the impression of confidence. 3 wide up the road ahead, bit of spray kicked into the face, wipers back on, as there on the outside line Alfio Spina, on the inside line Simon Birch, and it's Alexandre Leroy that's lost out big time on that lap because Reinhard Koffler has got ahead of him. Tamburini has got himself through the traffic. Koffler finally cracks Leroy, but it's a bit too late really because Tamburini is away and gone. And Tamburini ahead of Birch now means he's gained a place within the championship. Also, Philippe Pret, not only has he got his time penalty, he's under investigation as well for an unsafe release now. Another big send on the inside line there by Reinhard Koffler to try to get ahead of the Simon Birch KTM, but to no avail. Birch able to keep him at bay, at least for now. They make that climb once again up the hill. So we're going to have the leader onto his last lap this time. Mauro Calamia goes through with just over half a minute still to spare. And now, as the race gets to its close, Carlo Tamburini's car looking quicker and quicker lap by lap. Mauro Calamia has done the fastest lap, but Tamburini's Maserati starting to adapt better to the track conditions, gets up alongside Bobelik. The frustration is that that's another car that's not in the same class, so even overtaking it won't really affect things as far as championship points are concerned. And he hasn't overtaken him because fending him off all the way down the pit straight is Jean-Luc Bobelik. So they turn now through that right-hander of turn 3. The road climbs and it turns there. Number 80 KTM going through. Mato Homola. The race leaders then on lap 23. And it is the last lap of the race. One more race in the championship to go tomorrow. Jean-Luc Bobelik and Gilles Vannelet will go into that with an increased advantage in the championship on the basis that Philippe Pret's going to finish ahead on the road, but the time penalty will drop him down the order within the class. Tamburini ahead now of Bobelik, 5th overall, but that's only put him ahead of a car in that other division. Great drive, though, by Roberto Pampanini early on, and Mauro Calamia here on target then to score honours, because up towards turn 13 the car will come, then to the right-hander at turn 14, checkered flag at the ready, and for the Dynamic Motorsport team for Maserati, Roberto Pampanini and Mauro Calamia take honours in the penultimate Fanatec GT2 European Series powered by Pirelli race of the championship. Yeah, Andy Cantu is just going to hang on to second place, or is he, as they come to the line? Mato Homola right up behind him. But it is the Mercedes that fends off the KTM. And then Mato Homola in third place, Philippe Pret fourth over the line. But as far as Pro-Am is concerned, it's going to be Bobelik and Vanelay ahead of Alexandre Leroy. And if you put 12 seconds onto Philippe Pret's time, he's going to be third in class. And that's before you get to the investigation for a possible unsafe release. So a really impressive job done by Mauro Calamia and Roberto Pampanini. They will make their way to the pit lane, ready for interviews for the podium. And of course, they've got another race to go tomorrow. They're getting closer to the AM Championship, Gilles Vanelay and Jean-Luc Bobelik. Another job very well done indeed. First win of the year for Calamia and Pampanini, new to the championship, but as far as Bobelik and Vanelay are concerned, the fifth victory of 2024. So thumbs up from Mauro Calamia to the marshals as he comes on his in-lap round to the pit lane. And an impressive job done, no question about it. So Philippe Pret, not only with that time penalty, but a 10-second additional penalty for an unsafe release. So the stewards have come down hard on him and the team. So bad race for Pret. A good race for Roberto Pampanini and Mauro Calamia, because they are the winners ahead of Jörg Wiebahn and Andy Cantu with Lennart Marianek and Mato Homola taking third. Leonardo Guarini fourth with Carlo Tamburini. Gianluca Giorgi, despite being in the gravel early on, he's fifth with Alfio Spina. Sixth, winning in AM, Gilles Vanelay and Jean-Luc Bobelik. A disappointing seventh for champion-elects Martin Koch and Reinhard Koffler. Eighth to Thomas Anderson and Simon Birch. Alexandre Leroy ninth after a yo-yo race. And 10th, Ben Schneider and Wim de Pundet. So the winning cars arrive into Parc Fermé. Roberto Pampanini jumps around in joy, finds his co-driver Mauro Calamia, and they can celebrate together after a great drive. Excellent job done by the pair of them. New to GT2, but no strangers to success. After many, many years of one-mate racing, they know exactly what they're doing. So bravo to Roberto Pampanini and Mauro Calamia. Jörg Wiebahn and Andy Cantu, in the end, 12 seconds back. That Maserati just came on so much stronger in the second part of the race and ends up taking the race win. And sixth in the end, the best of the AMs, Jean-Luc Bobelik and Gilles Vanelay. So Mauro Calamia and Roberto Pampanini are our race winners. Antonio Rankin is in the pit lane to have a word.
Roberto, Mauro, you were jumping for joy. How much does this mean?
I think a lot, because after the first race in Monza, after the crash, yeah, we was a bit unlucky with the crash, and we were spoken a lot to continue this year or to stop, and I think it was the right choice to continue.
Yes, I mean, it's beautiful for me too. It's a wet race, it's not so easy. First time with this car in a wet race, but the car was perfect, really, and so we enjoy this. I think it's perfect, this win.
It really was perfect. Guys, you drove so well. Congratulations.
So after the disappointment last time out, bouncing back with a great result, and the Dynamic Motorsport Maserati GT2 for Mauro Calamia, and Roberto Pampanini comes through victorious, and a job well done by them both. So the Maserati GT2 comes out on top. And let's see what they can do tomorrow. The forecast is for a drier track surface for tomorrow's race, but the Maserati looking so good today, should still be a car to factor into the race tomorrow. So the winning drivers will make their way up to the podium very shortly. And at this Festival of Speed at the Barcelona circuit, it's a GT fan heaven, really, because you've not only got GT2, you've got GT3, you've also got one make action from Lamborghini and from McLaren, and we'll see it tomorrow, the GT1 cars from Curbstone as well, doing their high-speed demonstration laps. Lennart Marianek and Mato Homola in the all-black overalls there. Let's look at the highlights of the first GT2 race of the weekend. It began with a very good start from pole position for Gilles Vannelet. Philippe Pret from the outside of the front row on a wet road started to go backwards. Much more spray being evident at the start of the race than the end as the road dried pretty quickly. They tiptoed their way out of turn one, and those that found the traction on the outside line were soon making progress. And on his toes early doors, Roberto Pampanini in the gold Maserati gaining ground. Vannelet had an early battle with Dominic Olbert, who would find his way through into the lead. But it wasn't long before Olbert found himself in strife, having hit the front and built a bit of a gap. He then had a big moment coming towards turn 10 when the car lost power. He was able to restart it, but that threw him way, way down the order. He parked the car, did a Control-Alt-Delete, restarted it, but he was way out of contention. So that left Jörg Wiebahn battling Gilles Vannelet for the race lead. It got them to the pit window with the car stopping on different laps, and once the window was closed, it was Andy Cantu just ahead after the extra compensation time served by Vannelet and Boberlich. Number 61 Mercedes had to be retrieved, and as it did so, the safety car was deployed. That bunched up the field, and on the restart, Mauro Calamia was on his toes, trying to find a gap on the outside as they came through turn 3. Eventually it did work, and the Maserati on target for its first win of the season. A really good drive by both Roberto Pampanini and Mauro Calamia, winners of race 1 in the GT2 European Series, powered by Pirelli. So this is the championship going into tomorrow's race with effectively now already the champions, Reinhard Koffler and Martin Koch. Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini second, Thomas Anderson and Simon Birch third. But Martin Koch and Reinhard Koffler enjoying a good season. Perversely, the one race in which they've not been in the top 3 is the one in which they take the title. But Koch and Koffler, champions-elect going into tomorrow's race, despite a frustrating race today. So as the podium is made ready, drivers in a moment will step forward. And the circuit getting busy once more as the final race of the day is going to be getting underway shortly for Lamborghini Super Trofeo. But first up, the teams from GT2 stand under the podium. The RTR Project KTM team ready to cheer their driver. So Mato Homola and Lennart Marianek step forward as the third-place drivers from the KTM RTR Project squad. Then second-place drivers will be next onto the podium, which is going to be the combination of Jörg Wiebahn and Andy Cantu. And then the winning team will be represented, and that winning team from the efforts of the race winners will be Dynamic Motorsport. So the winning team for the podium next. And then it will be the drivers themselves, Roberto Pampanini and Mauro Calamia, who come forward onto the podium. Mauro Calamia and Roberto Pampanini ready to leap up onto the top step. So the Maserati drivers triumph in a race that was wet and drying, but a win impressively for the Maserati drivers. So the winning drivers on the podium. Trophies ready to be presented by Jose Luis Santamaria, the managing director of the circuit. And Mato Homola, Lennart Marianek receive theirs first. So the winning drivers await their trophies, and the way that they've gone today, don't bet against more coming tomorrow. So the drivers atop the podium. And are they going to spray or save? I think the answer is spray. There's an element of reluctance, I think, from one or two. Yes, Jörg Wiebahn says, I want to stay dry if you don't mind. So there's a clink of the bottle, and then they'll make their way off the podium. And Cantu, though, is quite happy to spray, even though Jörg Wiebahn, his co-driver, was hoping to stay dry. Race winners can celebrate now. Mauro Calamia and Roberto Pampanini for the Dynamic Motorsport team after a really impressive effort. So we will look forward to tomorrow's race and more action from the GT2 European Series powered by Pirelli.